Just waiting on you.
Is it going to cut off?
You tell me
this
when.
time?
I don't know. I think so.
I think we're good.
It usually cuts off, so
Hey,
15 minutes? Oh, we're ready. All right.
Yeah.
Welcome into Sports Around the Bar, the most professional sports talk show out there. We're glad you're back. We're glad to be back.
Always on time, always on schedule, never miss a show, always right here with breaking news.
Once upon a time, yeah. These days, less so.
That's not us.
But welcome in. We have so much to talk about because it's been so long since we've talked. I think we need to go over everything going on in the NFL right now, pretty much. Seems like everybody's got something going on, from trade rumors, Tom Brady watch, where he's going to 38 different teams out of the 32 available. We're going to talk about Tua, the draft rankings. We're going to talk about guys going up at the combine, guys going down at the combine. Let me just get this beer ready, Drew, because we got a lot to talk about, and I'm already parched.
And we're marked safe. We did not get destroyed or wrecked by those tornadoes. That's always a good thing.
Thankfully, yes.
All prayers and loves to the families that were affected by it. But we are safe because we are live from you in the Nashville area. But yeah, hey, Facebook decided to tell me that we're live, so who knows how much we cut off. But
did you get any of that?
Michael,
good to see you, Michael.
See you. Cody, good to see you.
We live, yes, thank you. I guess let's start into it. I normally start by asking you what you're most excited to talk about, but today I don't care because we have so much to talk about. We're just going to go through all of it. Let's start with Tom Brady.
Let's do it.
Are you cool with Tom? Or do you want to start with the news?
No,
let's start with the news, and then we'll go into Brady Watch.
Okay, all right.
You're the one who said you're tired of talking about it.
No,
so.
I'm not tired of talking about it. It's just like I know everyone else is tired of talking about it.
You just hate Tom Brady. That's what it is. That's what it is. You're just a hater. You're just a hater. Let's start with the news. Today, Austin Eckler, I'm going to start with him, gets a new contract. Does that mean Melvin Gordon is gone in L.A.? Almost. Not quite.
Yeah. You don't pay a guy, what was it, guaranteed $15 million, 4 years, around $25 million. I mean, this is your starting quarterback, running back of your team. Melvin Gordon's the odd man out. It makes sense to get rid of him.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. He's going to be the best free agent running back on the market if you believe all these rumors that the Titans will not let Derrick Henry slip through their fingers under any means. I guess we'll see what happens with that, but at least right now it seems like Gordon is going to be out there. High-caliber free agent that's still young enough to make an impact. I know there's all the stigma out there about signing a free agent running back. You just don't do it. You don't give him the big contract. Is there a team that you see Melvin Gordon going to because of it, just the talent? Someone will say, I'll pay him the $13 or the $15 million a year.
Oh, yeah, 100%. This guy's not going to stay unsigned. He's talented. Yeah, he's had some injury issues, but this was a sought-after running back in the draft. He's still young in running back terms. Yeah, he's not going to be without a team for very long.
Michael says we all don't like Tom Brady. Fair enough. And Ryan goes on to say Marcus to Las Vegas would be a great fit system-wise. I've had a better transition with the Las Vegas Raiders than I've had out of either of the LA teams. But anyway, Ryan goes on to say Marcus to Las Vegas would be a great fit system-wise, and he hopes it happens. He thinks he would challenge Carr, and he knows we're both not high on Marcus, but it's just his opinion. Do I think he would challenge Carr? If Derek Carr is as out of Oakland, I said I was good. If Derek Carr is as out of favor with Las Vegas as the rumors would suggest, then I would say yes, Marcus Mariota could challenge him for a starting spot. I don't know that I really believe those rumors, though. Still under a big contract. He still had decent years. I don't know that they're as ready to get rid of him that they're going to sign Marcus Mariota and say, go compete with him heads up. I think it'd be like a Tannehill situation where it might take 5 or 6 games of Derek Carr not looking good before the Raiders are ready to say, okay, let's see if Marcus can do anything any better.
Well, the problem about that is Derek Carr's been under the trade rumor block for 3 years now. This is ever since John Gruden showed up as the head coach of the Raiders. He's been on the trading block. That's the rumor. Sooner or later, it's going to happen. I honestly, truly believe that Derek Carr is not the future at quarterback for the Raiders, and I think they can bring someone in like Marcus Mariota to challenge him. Ryan, to that, I am kind of down on Marcus. I saw one good year out of him, but then after that, it kind of failed. And I'm also with Jake on this. The injuries have taken its toll on Marcus. I think it's kind of messed with him physically and mentally. I think he's not prepared to take the hits like he was when he first came in because he's actually seen some prolonged injury effects, especially with that elbow. There's still talk that he's numb in that hand and can't feel the grip of a ball. That makes a huge difference. Being a Raiders fan like yourself, I would think you'd want to target someone else besides Marcus Mariota. I know it would be a cheaper number for you, but at this point, you want someone to win because your team is a very close to a young and up and coming team. And
but I'm
bringing someone in like Marcus,
Yeah.
I don't think it puts him over the edge.
I don't hate it. I don't hate the idea of bringing him as a backup on the cheap. But I will say this: we're going to talk about all of that when we talk about Tom Brady, because we're going to talk about his landing destinations. There's tons and tons of rumors, not even rumors at this point. We know it's the truth that Oakland is very interested in signing Tom Brady. We're going to talk about that as well as what they should do at quarterback in that segment too. So we'll talk about that too. Cody says Gordon should go to Tampa Bay. I'd like to see that. I think that's one of the best landing spots because there's a lot of other teams that seem like they have the guy at running back. And that's kind of why I threw that question out to you, to trick you and throw you off so you look bad in front of everybody. No, but seriously, there's not too many teams out there that I say, that signing Melvin Gordon would be that great of an upgrade that is worth paying the money versus the guy they have. Like if you're Washington, are you going to go off Darius Geis's super cheap contract to sign him and Adrian Peterson's super cheap contract to sign him? I don't know that he's that much better than those guys. I think he's better, but he's not $10 million worth of different.
Yeah.
Seattle, same thing. Chris Carson seems like he gets the job done. There's not a whole lot of teams out there that I look at and I say Melvin Gordon is a must sign because our team gets so much better with him that the $13 million that we could have spent elsewhere has to go at running back.
Yeah.
Tampa might be that team.
Yeah, I think it makes sense for what Cody said. Tampa Bay needs a running back. He would fit in there perfectly fine. Cameron, good to see you, man. He says, can a miracle happen and Tristan Wirf drop to the Titans at 29? No. Actually,
it would take a Laramie Tunzel-style implosion with as many good tackles are in this draft. Like day of, post pictures of him just ripping from the bong or snorting a line of coke off. Never mind. It would take just a monumental screw up for that to happen, and then
a hooker's butt.
I was, I was, but I was like, I'm gonna let it go.
We've all been there. We've all been there.
If you play in Miami, you have been. But I'll say this: if that happens and you have that monumental screw up, J-Rob won't draft him because we want high character guys here in Nashville.
Wirf was my second tackle off my mock draft. When I do it again, it's a good possibility he's the first. I think his combine only helped push himself up the draft board. He's one of those, when we get to it, risers in his stock after the combine. I don't see it, man. Honestly, don't. If you guys are targeting him, you're going to be trading up to get to him.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Although I will say tackle is definitely on the Titans' radar. With Dennis Kelly and Jack Conklin being free agents, the right side for the Titans' offensive line is a huge question mark. They're going to have to address it, especially if they sign someone like Tom Brady, who's not going to be moving a whole lot. As we move back, I'm glad we look okay, because on my screen it looks like we're on a 1985 CCTV. Look at how terrible this looks. It's been like this the whole time.
We don't look like that. At least I don't.
Thank God. All right.
Luke, good to see you, man. He says, are you guys all talking XFL yet? We will, man. Throw a question to us. Yeah, I mean...
Are you worried about the dip? That, they had the week one. They had pretty explosive numbers week one, but we're starting to see a little bit of that decline that we saw with the AAF too, where maybe the novelty's starting to wear off a little bit. Are you worried about the dip for the XFL? Really quick.
Yeah, I think that for some reason with college and the NFL, it's really hard for a third major, competitor of football for America to watch. I honestly think that even though you have your diehard fans, like all of us probably are, we're kind of few in numbers. Mm-hmm. You kind of, with the college, you kind of pull the people that don't watch football all the time, but it's their team playing, and it's the same thing with the NFL. XFL is going to struggle for a few years, and the question is, how deep is their pocketbooks? I know Vince McMahon's willing to spend millions of dollars to do it, but
sometimes those bills start hitting your desk, and you're like, do I really want to do this?
It's a concerning thing right now for him, I'm sure. Now, I don't think it's going to end after year one, but I didn't think that about the AAF league either. So.
And that didn't even get through year one.
Exactly.
I would say this: they should have pushed it a couple weeks back. I know they're trying to have these guys ready for training camp, but they should have waited about a month in between the Super Bowl and when they actually started playing, so that you get that hunger built back up. I think people are still a little fatigued, like just going from 1 week off and then I've got football again. I don't think it had the same kind of build-up. If they would have waited and people would have gone a month without watching any football. I mean, are you worried about competing with March Madness? I think they could have done it. I think that would have been the best time to bring the league into existence instead of right away after the Super Bowl. Because I just watched, the 49ers and the Chiefs, the two best teams in football this year, battle it out. And then I'm going to watch amateur football afterward. Even though I think it's been better product in the AAF, it's still not the same. And I think they should have waited a month to kind of let that die down a little bit.
Well, I should have read further because Luke put in here, and what's your opinion on Vince and what he has done with this year? Well, I kind of answered a little bit.
I mean, I like Vince McMahon. He's weird, but I like him.
I don't like him.
I like him.
But he's a businessman, and I think he's trying to put the best product on the field to make it entertaining. I don't like him. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I don't like the sideline
I don't
interviews.
like Uncle Vince, all right?
I liked it at first, the sideline interviews. Don't like them anymore because now it's just tedious. Every time I see it, I'm like, oh, my God. This again. Hey, why did you not intercept that pass and instead let it go for a touchdown? Well, I couldn't reach the ball. Like, what am I supposed to say? I don't know. Don't like it. Think they should move on from it.
A couple more. Brian, good to see you. Martavius, good to see you. Michael says his team, the Colts, needs players. Well, luckily for you, man, the cap space is wide open.
And they got draft picks.
And you can sign anyone you want.
Chris Ballard, though, is a dragon. He's just sitting on a hoard of money in Indianapolis.
You didn't let me finish. But it's not going to happen because I thought last year you guys would sign tons of free agents and you left like $80 or $90 million worth of cap space just sitting there.
Costanzo's definitely a concern. Your left tackle in your tackle in Indianapolis. But I will say this: I think the Colts are probably one of the better rosters out there. I think you just need a quarterback. If you can find a guy to lead the charge and then maybe get another weapon or two to facilitate and establish that offense through the air, you already have the ground game. That's already fantastic. The defense is somewhere a little bit above average. I think this team, you get the right quarterback, you're going to the playoffs. So I'm not saying you don't need players. Everybody needs players. But I think Indy's in a better spot than a lot of people think.
Yeah. James, good to see you. JP, always glad you're here, man. Cody, thank you for being here. Martavius says, good evening, guys. The rumor has it Quinn and Dimitrov are bumping heads. Is it true? I'm cool with Dimitrov. Dimitri, whatever. And it should have been fired.
I mean, there's going to be bumping heads because everybody's going to be on that hot seat. And that's the long and the short of it. Every time you're talking about guys getting very close to losing their jobs, and it's always out there in the media, the rumors are flying around, you're going to have some friction. I wouldn't read too much into it, especially now that all the head coaches have been kind of signed basically during the offseason. You don't want to be the last team to do it. I think both those guys, they'll make it. I wouldn't worry about it too much until something happens.
Well, there's no doubt that they're on the hot seat because when you go from Super Bowl appearance to giving up one of the biggest deficits ever in a Super Bowl game and losing it and then having down years afterwards, it puts those guys in the hot seat. There's an issue. And when you hear rumors that they're bumping heads, it's probably because, like you said, they're both fearing for their job. But you got one more year with these guys for sure. Arthur Blank, from what I've seen through his years of being the owner of
Good to see
the
you,
Atlanta
James.
Falcons, he doesn't make quick decisions. He's kind of a guy that's willing to take his time. I mean, look at what was his name? Smith, Coach Smith. Michael Smith?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was a coach forever, and I'm sorry, it was like
Mike, yes, but yeah.
Oh, it was Mike Smith. Okay, that's what it was. I felt like I was saying it wrong. But there was like 2 years before they let him go where it's like you could have let him go 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, they're conservative enough. They have conservative enough ownership. I don't think they're going to pull the trigger on that. Cameron goes on to say that Conklin is gone and Kelly could be resignable for the Titans. Yeah, but they also have announced that because the CBA has taken as long to ratify that the transition tag should be usable for everybody. So now that you have two essentially franchise tags, maybe Jack Conklin winds up on one of those tags. It would be expensive, very expensive. But if you work a deal with Tannehill or another quarterback that's more reasonable, you work a deal with Derrick Henry, I'm saying it's not out of the realm of possibility that you hang on for one more year with your tackle and hope that salary cap goes up high enough that you can offer him that contract the next year.
Going back to Ryan's comment about Marcus Mariota going to the Raiders, he says Marcus isn't the future. He knows that, but he thinks he'd be a good system fit and maybe push Carr. Competition is always great.
I'm not against it.
I'm not against it either, Ryan. I just think if it was me and I was looking at my roster and where we could have been last year and where we are now, you want to improve at quarterback, not kind of stay plateau. And I think Marcus at this point, even if he's a backup, is a plateau quarterback. I'd be more in favor of you guys trading off, going for like Andy Dalton or Nick Foles and make them compete with Derek Carr, because I think if one of those guys could take over that system, you might be talking about a better quarterback playing for you. I still believe in Carr, but I'm just saying if you're really looking for someone to really push that note, Dalton, Foles, those are guys I can think of just off the top of my head that would be great people to put behind Carr and make a push and see what you got from there.
Absolutely. Cody says, how about Melvin Gordon going on to Atlanta? I like it, but they'd have to get Devontae Freeman's money off the books first. I'm not sure where he's at on releasable cap and what kind of cap impact that would have, but they did just offer him one, and usually the early parts of those deals are less escapable. Wouldn't be against it. Obviously, Devontae Freeman hasn't lived up to it. He's still a guy that I like, and I think if you look at Dirk Cotter's history with running backs, it hasn't been fantastic. We kind of talked about this not too long ago. I think you might be willing to say, like, hey, let's bring in a different offensive mind and see if we can make it work with Freeman before we go sign Gordon. Wouldn't hate it, though, Cody. Not a bad fit. I just don't know money-wise if it makes sense.
Michael Smith, good to see you, man. Frank, always good to see you. Luke, I'm sorry if we're lagging, man. Hopefully
it says we haven't dropped any frames.
Hopefully it fixes itself. He's got blurry issues. Mine looks fine. Man, I'm sorry. We'll just keep going through it and hopefully it fixes itself.
Absolutely. Cody goes on to say Gordon to Atlanta. He's on that train as well. The other Cody Bressman. Forgive me if I slaughtered that one. He says they have Freeman and a couple solid backups that, if you can remember correctly, the backups haven't really lived up to it. Guys like, was it Ish Smith that they have behind him and everything?
Smith?
Yeah. They haven't really lived up to the expectation, or at least what it was when they had Kyle Shanahan calling the offense there, and that's very easy to do. But Tevin Coleman, you look at the night and day difference where he struggled in Atlanta after Shanahan left, and then, as soon as he goes to San Fran, he looks great again. So it might not be Devontae Freeman. It might be scheme. I think you should absolutely consider that before you get rid of your one high dollar running back to go sign an even higher dollar running back.
Yeah. Oh, man. One more question about XFL. James says, Vince has a bunch of money. Why would you create a football league? It's because the money that the NFL makes and the NCAA makes is just a crazy amount of money. It's almost like a monopoly in a sense. And when you're a businessman, you look at it and go, I could create something that might steal some of that. That's what he was doing. And
I'm not living inside his head, so I'm not 100% sure what he's thinking. But when you have that much money, I think there comes a point in time where you're just like, this is what I want to do. This is what I enjoy. Well, I want to succeed.
He wants to make money.
Yes, but I think on top of that, he says, I want to make money, but I want to own a football league. I don't know that you can pin it down to, I'm just trying to make more money when you're already a billionaire. Could be. Some guys just want to make, how much is enough? That the answer is always more.
Yeah.
But I think when you talk about Vince McMahon, he's probably more motivated by, hey, I tried to do this once before, it failed. It's kind of like that thing that keeps me up at night, and now I just want to give it another crack. I've got the money. I'm good. My family's gonna be good forever. Why not take another stab at the XFL and try to correct my mistakes? A couple more of these.
Nate, good to see you, man. He says Gordon to the Texans.
Good to see you, John, from Texas as well. Wouldn't hate it. I think they could definitely use an upgrade at running back. I don't think Lamar Miller's the answer. He spent almost the entire year out. They have Carlos Hyde, who had over 1,100 yards this year, close to that.
Yeah.
Don't know that he's the answer long term either. I think Melvin Gordon's a big upgrade from both of those guys. I just don't know that they have the cap to invest to it. I'm pretty sure they're closer to the cap ceiling than a lot of other teams are. They'd have to make some moves, and they got to fix the offensive line first. You can sign any running back you want. I don't know that they're going to have a ton of success when the offensive line's still not back to where it needs to be competitive.
Cody, he asked, did Philly cut the left tackle?
They say they plan to.
They're letting him test free agency. They're letting him. They're allowing him to go out and talk to other teams and see.
Which is a nice way of saying we're going to.
Well, I mean, yes. It's either, hey, go out there and see what you can get. Come realistically back to us and be like, hey, this is what they're offering me. Can you match it? And that happens a lot, actually, more than you know.
And James wants to know, what do we think about Bill O'Brien being now the GM and the head coach at Houston? Well, I think he already has been, especially because they fired their GM. They kind of did like a groupthink thing during this season, and that's why you saw such an expensive deal for guys like Laramie Tunsil and Kenny Stills. I think the Dolphins, to their credit, took advantage of a team in chaos. Don't like it. I'll be honest with you. I don't love Bill O'Brien being in charge of entirely the personnel, because right now you've already kind of mortgaged too much of your assets that you're going to need to make this team better. Think about all these first-round picks that are already gone. And I like Laramie Tunsil, but he's not a top 5 tackle. If you're giving up multiple first-round picks, I got to get like a top 5 tackle who's young.
I'm indifferent. I'm indifferent about it because you cannot ignore the success of him winning the South, making the playoffs multiple years. All of that's, something you want. You want your coach and your GM, who he is now, actually with a title, putting the right pieces in place to win your division, go into the playoffs, and make a run for the Super Bowl. Now, the issue's been the run to the Super Bowl. But Now that everything is truly his, I think this puts more pressure on Bill O'Brien than it ever has. And it's like, all right, you have all the reins. You direct us further into the playoffs to a Super Bowl. If you can't do it, I think his lifeline at Houston Texans is shorter. To be honest, if they do not make the playoffs this year, I think he is no longer the head coach of the Texans. That's my opinion.
I agree. John says, what should the Steelers do at running back? If they had more money, I would say Melvin Gordon makes a ton of sense. I mean, you could almost, I don't want to say it'd be exactly like having Le'Veon Bell back, but you can get a lot closer to that. Obviously, they had a lot of guys come in and test it this year. Didn't quite pay out what we kind of expected.
Zero space.
But how much of that was because the passing game was so ineffective? I think we underrate that. There are a lot of teams that when you can't throw, everybody's like, all right, we're playing the line of scrimmage. That exactly happened to the Steelers this year. As soon as they lost Big Ben, everyone said, we're just going to disrespect the pass and see if you can beat us there.
Well, I mean, everything will change when Ben Roethlisberger comes back.
But I'll say this. Yeah, even with Big Ben back, I don't like signing someone like Melvin Gordon to a big dollar deal. When you go draft a third-round running back with Big Ben on the team, go get a couple receivers, and all of a sudden you're talking about, this no-name running back having a ton of success. I look at the Devin Singletaries, the David Montgomerys of this world, the third-round picks from last year that came in and had a lot of success. You don't have to spend big. You can get 85% of the production of even someone like Melvin Gordon for a third-round pick. Why not do it?
Well, James even saying Melvin Gordon should be the running back to the Steelers. Beyond the fact they don't have the cap space at this point, I think it's unrealistic. I'm kind of with Jake here. You still have someone in James Conner. He was banged up. Again, the success out of third-round running backs and below that is still very high. He's not worth it. To me, he's not worth it. That's not what you're missing out. You were missing out on a quarterback last year as far as the Steelers go. When you bring Big Ben back, your whole dynamic and offense changes. You will see more running lanes open because they have to actually push their defense back and respect the pass.
Look at teams like the Packers. Look at teams like Indianapolis. They don't have highly drafted running backs, but they're getting great performances out of all of them. I mean, you talk about Aaron Jones. There's so many teams that would love to have a guy like that, or Jamal Williams on their team. Marlon Mack, take your pick. Nyheim Hines. There's so many guys in Indy that are effective running backs because, all right, sorry about that.
It's Sports Around the Bar Ghost.
Yeah. They're effective running backs because the rest of the team is good. That's all you got to do. You got to get some guys, some bodies. So I really wonder what this Melvin Gordon contract is going to look like, because I think there'll be a team like the Jets last year when they had to bring in Le'Veon Bell that say, he's a great talent, let's just sign him, and it'll happen. And I think that's going to be Tampa Bay. But I think there's just a lot of teams that are starting to get wise to that fact of I don't have to spend $30 million on a running back collectively when I'm talking about the contract.
Luke says he agrees about the offensive line, and the Chiefs wondered if all year, man, how do we put it together? I still don't believe it. I guess I'm confused about he agrees with the offensive line. But as far as we can't believe we pulled it off, man, I can. I think we were that close last year. If it wasn't for a dumb D Ford mistake and a dumb Kareem Hunt, we might.
And a bad first half. I mean, let's face it. If they had a better first half, those plays don't matter so much too.
Well,
they let the Patriots jump up on it. Well, they had a lot of bad first halves this year too.
Bad first halves that we have.
They just got to learn how to start these games. That's okay.
I agree, man. It's a great year. It was.
And Michael asks again where we think Melvin Gordon will go. Again, I think Tampa is the most likely relationship because they've been so running back hungry for so long. They have the cap space. It just makes sense to me. There's not a lot of teams like I was talking about that have a lot of cap and are just going to go out and break the bank to sign a running back. Maybe Miami, if they're like, we don't want to address this in the draft, but they have 3 first-round picks, and a guy like DeAndre Swift might be calling their name in the first round.
Even though you're completely against
I'm against drafting first-round running backs, but if you've got 3 of them, I feel a little bit better about it. I did slam Oakland for it, and they had 2, or they had 3.
They need
last year with Josh Jacobs.
They need way more players than a running back. Something like Melvin Gordon would make sense for Miami, but I'm agree. Tampa's the one that makes the most sense at this point.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Quinnen Williams bringing a gun to the airport. Very dumb, but the kid's 22 years old and runs the risk now of going to jail for 3, 4, 5 years in New York. Like, this is, if you're the Jets, this is the nightmare scenario. We just spent a high draft pick on this guy, and he could go away Plaxico Burress style for 3 to 5 years in the state of New York.
Let's okay. All reports at this point are saying that he was not carrying it on him. It was in his luggage. It's still a mistake.
There was no intent.
But
yeah, it wasn't like he was planning on doing something.
Those things make a huge difference in the eyes of court. But this guy could spend some time behind bars regardless of it. Maybe not a year. I'd be really surprised if it's a year. But it would not surprise me that he could spend some time there because they are serious about not having guns there.
Yes.
But he was not carrying it at this point that we know he was not carrying it, which was huge.
Right, it was in his luggage, absolutely. If I'm the Jets, I just shit a brick. I have no other way to say it. I just shit a brick. This is terrible. This is, again, this guy is supposed to be the anchor of my defensive line for years to come. We just spent, what was it, pick 2, pick 3 on him? Yeah. And now he might be gone for 3 to 5 years of the prime, not the prime, but the growth years of his career. This is where you're supposed to be getting better. And year 1 wasn't amazing for him. That was the biggest surprise. When you saw this talent in the pros, it wasn't as dominant as everyone was kind of hoping for.
Yeah, but it was the Jets, and they've had a bad year.
And if you look at Greg Williams, defensive coordinator, he struggled with Myles Garrett early too.
Right.
Maybe he's not the best at developing talent. So, still, this is very stupid. I hate that we even have to talk about it. This to me is, I hope they slap him on the wrist, but it's New York State. New York doesn't mess around, and there basically is no Second Amendment in New York.
And you got to remember, Plaxico Burress was New York City, so that's also another thing.
That is true. That is true. This is New York.
It's a lot more stricter rules inside of New York City than New York State, but it's not good. It's not a good thing. For sure he's going to get fined. It would not surprise me if he spends a little time behind bars, but I don't think it'll be years. But who knows? They surprised us. They surprised us before in the past. So
yeah, I mean, it didn't go off. It wasn't the Plaxico Burress style thing. Who knows? I guess we'll find out. Now let's go on to Brady Watch. And Cody says he hates to love the Jets. I feel you, Cody. I feel you. Lovable losers, right? This is that lovable losers kind of story that you're like, this has nothing to do with anything we could control. Like this didn't have to happen.
I'm the opposite. I want the Jets or Miami or Buffalo to do well because that means the Patriots aren't doing well.
I absolutely agree. Speaking of the Patriots, why don't we talk about Tom Brady?
Yeah.
Not going back there, even though he is.
Everyone has wanted to talk about, right?
Yes.
Cody says he has a license for the gun. And
in Alabama.
Says it will be summed up shortly. Correct.
He has it licensed in Alabama. Right. The problem is when you travel across states, and I know this as a gun owner, the onus is on you. You need to know exactly what the gun laws are for wherever you're going, because when you don't, they throw the book at you anyway. You can't go in there and be like, well, I didn't know. It doesn't fly.
The only time you can do that is if you're a federal agent.
The only advantage he has, and I don't, is that he's famous. I'm internet famous. He's actually famous. So he has that going for him. Maybe
his fame ends up in dollars. Our fame ends up in just time spent.
Exactly. Maybe he gets the judge that's a Jets fan, slaps him on the wrist and says, don't do it again. But there's also the chance that he runs into the Giants fan. And yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or worse, the Patriot transplant from Boston. Okay, we'll move on. Let's talk about Tom Brady not going back to the Patriots. Just kidding, he's going to do it.
Just real quickly, Cody has also says, is it a case or locked up or something?
It was in a bag that he planned to put on the plane, which, again, huge no-no. If you're transporting a gun, even in states you're allowed to, you have to check that bag. You can't just bring it onto the plane with you because at any time you can stand up, open your bag, and then have a gun on an airplane. Historically, not great. Not somewhere you need a gun unless you're an air marshal. Yeah, so, again, just didn't know what he was doing. Kid's only 22.
Yeah. All right, to Brady. And Cameron's going to start off. He says, Tom Brady to the Titans, and he's excited about it. I don't know why. He's not a Tom Brady fan, so I don't know why he's excited about it.
I think you should be excited about it. I think everyone that thinks that their team is in position to win a Super Bowl right now should be excited about Tom Brady potentially going to the teams. Even the 49ers. Even a team that was this close, Drew. I mean, they were one quarter away, right? The reason I think most of the top-end teams, you don't want to admit it, but yeah. I think the reason most of the top-end teams need to be excited about this is because he's done it so many times. Even if he's losing his skills, even if he's getting a little bit older, he has been there and done that. He knows what it takes to win, and that's huge in sports. I think we underrate that, especially in the NFL.
Yeah, it's not a Peyton Manning thing where when Peyton Manning left the Colts, I know there was like, well, can he still play? I felt like Peyton Manning could literally go anywhere and make an offense a better offense. And even though Tom is a winner, I don't feel like Tom is in that part of his career where you throw Tom into an offense and the offense automatically gets better. I think he needs to go in the right scenario. Do I think the Titans are a good scenario for him? Absolutely. They're a run-first team. They have some young, up-and-coming receivers.
That are good in the mid-range, and I think that's important.
And this is something that would do well for him. But when you look at the other teams that are around him where you look at like the Colts or if you look at like
the Cowboys.
The Cowboys or the 49ers, I have to say at this point, those offensive lines are steps and above of what the Titans did during the passing game this year. And I think that's what's going to kind of scare me about saying, hey, he's going to the Titans just yet. I like the connections, especially with Vrabel and the GM. You know the GM's name to the Titans all the time.
John Robinson.
There you go. There's connections there with the Patriots and them. So it all makes sense for that to happen. But we're talking 1-2 years with Tom Brady, who wants to stay upright. He needs a good offensive line in front of him. It makes me a little bit nervous about the Titans, but it could happen.
I think the Titans are the best fit because, or I should say, Indianapolis is the best fit outside of New England. But I think the Titans are right up there with them because if you look at those two teams, they have question marks at quarterback. You really don't have the long-term guy. You could say Tannehill is for the Titans because he's only 31. Realistically, you could get another 8 or 9 years out of someone like Tannehill. But I think when you talk about Brady, there's a lot of talk about teams like the Raiders, and there's a lot of talk about teams like the Buccaneers and in Miami that they should all be interested in. I think that's the exact opposite of what you need to be. I think teams think Tom Brady's going to come in and it's just going to revolutionize the franchise. You're going to go from winning 7 or 8 games to winning a Super Bowl. I don't think those rosters are there. I think Tom Brady needs, at this point in his career, a complete roster if he's going to win another Super Bowl. I mean, you're going to have to outshoot the Chiefs. You're going to have to battle with some of these other tougher teams like the Steelers with Roethlisberger coming back, the Ravens who are going to be just as dangerous next year. This can't be a scenario where we're not quite there and we're going to sign a guy for a year or two and just expect our team to be there. I think those teams need to grow, and I don't think it's a good fit for him, and I don't think it's a good fit for them. If you're the Raiders, you shouldn't move on from a guy like Derek Carr to sign Tom Brady.
No, it's a step. It's not a step back, but it is in the longevity of your
Because 2 years from now, even if you make the playoffs, you're not going to win a Super Bowl, and you're going to be sitting there empty-handed like we need another quarterback again.
Unless they go out there and sign Tom Brady and they take the 2 first-round draft picks and trade up and grab one of these young guys and make them sit behind Tom.
I think it'd almost be the opposite. I think you have to trade down and then try to get like 3 of those guys, and that would be how you fix it.
I don't really know if that's the right move. James says he thinks it's up to Brady where he wants to go and thinks that the Pats will have the money to offer to him to stay. Or does he want to leave? Well,
that is the question, right?
Supposedly already had one conversation with Belichick and Tom Brady. The rumors are it didn't go as well as expected, but everyone kind of knows that that's going to be the case anyways. Belichick's one of those guys who are like, you're not above the system. You're not above the team. If you want to play for us, you have to play for us under this paycheck. And Tom Brady's pretty much has gone out and said, he goes, I want to get paid.
I want to get a pay raise. Yeah, because he's taken that team-friendly deal for years for them.
Yes.
Just to try to get him there. He says, now is the time. And this is going to Cody's point where he says, Tom Brady isn't going to Country Music USA. This is Music City. There's a lot of rap and rock and everything else filmed here in Nashville. But I'll say this about Tom Brady that's important. There's no state income tax in Tennessee. That I think, what is it in Massachusetts, 7, 8, 9% for a state income tax? Think about the millions of dollars. When you're being paid $30 million, that could be another $3 or $4 million in your pocket just by the state you live in. That's a $3 or $4 million raise. So if I get $30 million in Tennessee versus $30 million in Massachusetts, you're going to be making, even on the same dollar number, so much more to play in Tennessee. I think that might be incredibly attractive for a guy that supposedly wants to make more money.
It's definitely a good possibility. Michael Smith, who is our 49ers fan, goes, we need to stick with Jimmy G for the long term. I agree with you. I think Jimmy G is still your guys' answer at quarterback. But my question to you, Michael, and I hope you're still there, is do you think you would have won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady? That's kind of like the big question is, if you had Tom Brady at helm into the third and fourth quarter, would have won the Super Bowl? And I think that's why you hear a lot of the talk about the 49ers being that team that's right there to win. You bring in someone like Tom Brady who's done it, you guys win. I mean, that's kind of what it is. But I agree with you. Stick with Jimmy G.
And Cameron goes to say his thought is, what if this year was Tannehill's ceiling and it wasn't good enough? Brady's ceiling is Super Bowl. It's been proven 6 times. Well, you probably should expect it, but I think you could say maybe Tannehill has one of his different performances against the Chiefs, and maybe we beat them. Like, if you get this Tannehill again, it's okay that was a ceiling this year. I mean, he was one of the best statistical quarterbacks in the NFL this year. That's a good ceiling to have. You got to say the rest of the team could have made a play or two, and then with that guy, we can win a Super Bowl. But the problem with Tannehill is the floor is so much lower. Like, what if he goes back to the guy that he was in Miami? What if he gets paid, and all of a sudden, this Tannehill from last year isn't around anymore? And we just gave him a $25 or a $30 million a year contract. At that point, that's where your franchise just gets wrecked. That's how you turn into Jacksonville with Nick Foles at this point. Or worse than that.
Scott, good to see you, man. Glad you're here. Cameron goes off and with saying 4,000 yards with James White and Philip Dorsett and Ben Watson and all those secondary weapons, and he points out all the Titans' weapons, which I don't need to name them all. We all kind of already know who these teams are. He says the damage could be done will be a lot greater in a Titans uniform than the Patriots uniform. But let's not forget, the Patriots uniform is run by Belichick and the scheming that he does. Nothing against Mike Vrabel, but he is not an offensive. Not even Arthur Smith is an offensive genius like Belichick is. That's the reason why he's had so much success.
The only thing I'll say about Arthur Smith is it might be a little early to judge that. This is his first year at coordinator, and it was a pretty good one, right? Look at the Titans historically, and then look what Arthur Smith did with them. So,
yeah, but you always have one-year wonders. Belichick has done it for years
absolutely.
in and years out.
Absolutely.
I want to get to Cody's comment. Cody says San Diego would be the best fit.
See, I'm not the only one
besides New England, and they would draft a quarterback and let him sit behind him for a year. The only reason I don't like that is he's not a best fit because that offensive line gave up too many sacks.
Yes, they've been bad for you.
I agree with the weapons, and I agree with the defense. That all makes sense, but that offensive line is not where Tom Brady wants to be.
They'd have to get stouter up the middle, too, because the Chargers were too easy to run on this year. Part of that will get better with Derwin James coming back, but I don't think the Chargers are the right answer for Brady because, like you said, under duress, Brady would get eaten alive with that offensive line. That's one thing he's had forever, and we underrate how important that is to a guy's not only longevity but his success. It's his offensive lines, even in the bad years like this year, it's still like middle of the league. It's not terrible. He's not just like getting mauled, kind of like the Titans' offensive line was allowing to happen in the first half of this year. That's exactly what's going to happen to him in San Diego or L.A. It's going to happen again, just like it happened to Phillip Rivers this past year, and I don't think he has the success out there.
Cody also goes off and says 2 years ago the Chargers were 14-2, weren't they? Yes, they were, or something like that. They were definitely a better team. And he says that was with Rivers, and Eckler has resigned with great receivers like Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Yes, but we all know just because.
But is Mike Williams a great receiver?
Just because teams have success 2 years ago does not mean they're going to have success now.
Right.
I mean, look at the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, I'm still high on them because that when you look at the roster, like this team should be great, but there's not putting it on the field and making that happen. I feel like the Chargers are the exact same way. They had a great run. It was probably the last year that Phillip Rivers should have won or get closer to a Super Bowl and it didn't happen. I don't know if bringing in Tom Brady changes any of that for the Chargers.
Also, they lost guys like Dontrell Inman, who was a good role player. They lost Tyrell Williams, who was a great second receiver. I mean, the guy showed up in Oakland. I know he was hurt for part of the time, but he had some good games in Oakland. They've lost pieces. They might lose Hunter Henry again. The offensive line leaving. Brady is not that Phillip Rivers is a mobile quarterback. Yes, it could happen. They could have some success. But if you're Tom Brady, I think I'm saying I could have a lot more success for somebody who can protect me and give me the time to make decisions instead of just trying to throw the ball as quickly as possible because my offensive line can't hold up for 3 seconds.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Okay. More comments?
Well, do you want to read Scott's?
Sure. Scott says he says, the whole if you can't beat them, join them kind of thing. He's not one who hated on KD. He's just saying.
So
we're talking about Kevin Durant. I mean, who would he sign with? That would be like him signing with the Chiefs.
That'd be him signing with the Patriots.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's still what's going to happen. I think we're all talking about Tom Brady and all this other stuff. It's an elaborate ploy to get more money out of Robert Kraft, who is probably willing to sign any check that Tom Brady puts on his desk. So I don't know. I think he's still going back to the Patriots. I think it's probably the best spot for him, even beyond Tennessee, even beyond Indianapolis. I mean, he has just owned that division for 15 years. Why would you leave and why mess up a good thing, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You're gonna have a trapeze walk into probably a first round bye again. I know Ryan Fitzpatrick ruined that this year, but that might be more of an aberration than it is, the expected kind of result. My point is, what if Kansas City doesn't get that bye in the first round, and then they have to go to New England? I mean, the Patriots could have beat them. I think we're all kind of sleeping on that potential.
We beat them.
Sure. Okay. Just like last time, right?
Yeah. We did beat them last year. Why?
No, you beat them last year. Okay, sorry. Not last time. The time before that.
We did beat him. D Ford's an idiot.
That's not what the scoreboard said. You didn't beat him. Okay, moving on.
Let's move on.
The only other thing I have to talk about in the we we're through the news already.
No, we got trades. We still have trades.
We still have the Redskins drafting Tua Tagovailoa. Sorry, I mispronounced it.
Well, we're going to...
Are we doing my topic or are we doing your topic? Go ahead and pick.
What, are we going to do draft rumors? Is that what we're doing?
It's not even a rumor. Ron Rivera said we're interested. It's not a rumor at that point.
You know what that is?
To drive up the trade value.
Yes.
I was going to ask you that.
Yes.
All right, I guess we're done talking about it. Talk about whatever you're talking about.
No, we can talk about it, man.
No. Just crap all over what I want to talk about, and then talk about what you want to talk about. It's fine.
Yeah, let's talk about real news. A.J. Boye got traded to the Broncos for a 4th-round pick.
Interesting.
Who won this trade?
Nobody.
What?
Nobody. I like the Broncos probably a little bit better in this because
Yes.
the 4th-round pick is incredibly low, but Jacksonville also shed a huge contract
They
from a
did.
guy who hasn't performed since 2018.
Well, you played pretty
2017, I should say. Not lately. It's been kind of like Jalen Ramsey, all downhill from there. And you could say it's the rest of the team. You could say it's the attitude. You could say whatever you want. It wasn't the same guy that they got the first year on that big contract. I don't hate Jacksonville moving on from him. It's just a lot all at once is the thing. Jalen Ramsey just recently departed during the season. Now you're out on Boye. A lot of turnover on the defensive line. A lot of turnover on everywhere pretty much. At least Nick Foles is still there.
I think the only issue is the fact that he has to see Patrick Mahomes twice a year now. That's the only downfall that A.J. Boye brings is he's going to have to be looked that much down because those 2 games are just going to be hard.
But isn't that
They're gonna
better?
be hard for him.
Isn't that better? Like when Mahomes beats you, everyone's like, it was Mahomes. Not a big deal. I mean,
Yeah,
you get
maybe.
beat by like Jacoby Brissett, and everyone's like, what's happening?
No, I think the Broncos win this deal. 4th-round pick, in my opinion, for starting arguably your number 1 corner at the age of 28, is still in his prime, in my opinion, is a great deal. You're losing Chris Harris. He's already kind of proved he doesn't want to be there. He's definitely he's definitely more older than A.J. Boye is by a few years. This is an upgrade, and a 4th-round pick, in my opinion, is a great value for a starting corner in this league.
It is a lot of money for a guy that hasn't performed as good as
They
well
got
lately.
money.
Is what I can say. They do, and that's why I'm saying I'm okay with it. That's why I'm not saying this is a bad trade for him. A 4th-round pick, like you said, if this works out, if we get the old A.J. Boye, huge win for the Broncos. If it doesn't, you're like, now we're paying him $13.5 million a year, and Patrick Mahomes is just throwing at will on this guy. Sammy Watkins is having his elite game against Denver or whatever, I'm still okay with this. I think that's the right move for Denver. You're getting the potential for a good player. Now is the time with the roster in this kind of shape to take risks. This is a good risk to take. As for Jacksonville, getting that contract off there, I mean, they're pushing the plunger down. They're blowing up this defense. It's time to start over. That's okay, too. You got something out of him.
Yeah. Cody says, sign Robbie back. Draft Judy. If center/guard from Michigan, Rizzo is in there in the second, snag him up. May be able to snag one more offensive lineman with the amount of cap we have.
They're going to pay Jack Conklin, if you believe the rumors. The talk is $19 million a year. They're going to make him the highest paid tackle by far. They're going to break the bank to sign Jack Conklin, who, in my opinion, is a very good tackle. He's not top 10, though, and you're going to give him top 10 money. He's a great run blocker. Probably he could be top 10 in run blocking at the left tackle spot. He's an above-average pass blocker, but not elite. So putting him on the left side,
I think even regardless if they spend the 19, they could still go off and snag another offensive lineman.
they could, and they should.
Let alone you can draft another one. I mean, that's the nice thing about the draft. Those draft picks do not take a lot of cap space.
I also like Tyler Bydaz, a guy you should look at in the draft. Second round could come around. He's out of Wisconsin, I believe. I like him.
All right, my last thing on these trades is what Matt LaFleur, right? What's Matt? There's so many Matts now.
Matt Rule.
Matt Rule is doing in Carolina with this trade, going out and getting Russell Okung, getting rid of their Pro Bowl guard and Turner. Is this the right move? Is he making moves that make sense? You're moving a young 26-year-old guard that just had a Pro Bowl season for a 31-year-old left tackle that really has had a hard time finding a home.
It's up and down with Okung.
Yes, he's a Pro Bowler.
Yeah,
but he's had a hard time finding a place to stay.
It's always up and down with Okung. If you get the elite year, this is a great trade for him. You're getting a tackle for a guard, right? I mean, almost every GM in their right mind would say, "Give me that every day of the week." The problem is it doesn't always work out. I'm not crazy about Trey Turner moving out, but I will say this: at the very least, with Trey Turner, you're not necessarily going to have to re-sign him. You don't have to foot that big bill for a guy who's probably going to be coming up on his contract here soon. And it was just one good year. Like, this could be the whole selling high aspect. When you watch the rest of his tape, you're like, he's not this guy.
Yeah.
If we can sell him now and go get somebody like Okung, why not do it?
Yeah. I mean, out of the two careers, Okung's definitely had the better career, but Turner's career is just started. We got to remember, he's like 26.
Yes.
Cameron says he saw a mock draft with Worfs from Iowa going to the Giants at 4.
Every tackle will be kind of linked to the Giants because they want to reestablish a run with Dave Gettleman. And Saquon Barkley had a bit of a down year, even though he was battling injuries and everything. I think they might even pass on. I think the Giants have the most interesting pick because they have a guy, I think his name is Nick Oates, who's a backup lineman who's played incredibly well, and I think is probably deserving of a starting spot. He's played tackle, he's played guard. I think he's even played a little bit of center. So I think when you're talking about what the Giants can do, they could shift him to right tackle, let go of Mike Remmers, and
later, right in a comment after that, he says Conklin and Wars would be good for a young set of tackles for Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I mean, it would be good. The problem with Nate Solder right now is his cap hit. You have to wait until next year to have the escape, I believe. I can't remember if it's this or next year. They have a clause in his contract where they're not going to eat so much dead cap money if they cut him him then.
And I know you don't like me saying this, but Worfs he's a Swiss Army knife. He can literally play anywhere on the offensive line. So you could stick him on guard on the left side with Nate Solder.
Well, they do have Will Hernandez. I don't think he's moving.
Side. I mean,
and Zeitler on that side too.
Okay, you can play him in center. I mean, it's never going to hurt to have a sixth player coming off the bench and letting this guy play. But really, that didn't really make sense because you don't really draft someone at 4 to have him sit on the bench
or play him at center. Yeah, you're looking for the starter.
I guess that makes sense when you start thinking about their offensive line.
Let me say this about the Giants, just really quick to wrap it up. They could move Oates to right tackle. John Halapio is the most interesting kind of question because he's torn his ACL. I think he's 31 now. He's their center. They're good at guard. I think Will Hernandez is going to be around for a while. Kevin Zeitler had a great year as well. Nate Solder's the big question mark, but I think money-wise, they're still married to him for another year. The real question is, do you need to spend that pick? Because they could do it. They could say Nick Oates is not the guy, and I think it's Oates. I might just be making somebody up right now. I know they have somebody, and I know his first name is Nick. I think it's Oates. It might be Oaks. I don't remember. But they have to decide if he's willing to, if he's the guy to step up. If they decide that, you could go Isaiah Simmons and rework this linebacking core, put him next to Ogletree, try to re-sign Mayo, their run-stopping guy, and all of a sudden this defense gets a lot more formidable. It could be Jeffrey Okudah if he falls to that spot. The Giants have so many different things. They could go Jerry Jeudy. I don't think they will, but because they've had good receiver play, and that doesn't seem like Dave Gettleman's style, but they could just say, we're going to have great receivers everywhere. And it starts by drafting Jerry Jeudy. They are going to be one of the most interesting teams at the top end of the draft to look at with all the different directions they could go.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I believe that it's going to be defense, in my opinion. But as you start putting those names together in that offensive line, 4, if they got Jack Conklin, Wars just doesn't make sense.
I think they got to go defense with their mony. The Giants have a lot of cap space, but I think with as bad as the defense played, you got to go there. I don't think they're really even in the running for Jack Conklin. I think the Jets are just going to outbid everybody in the market. That's okay, though.
Damon, always up to date with all the news in the XFL and NFL and NASCAR is what I've heard. He says, what about Brett Favre and the XFL? You guys need to get on them hot topics. Because the real news is going on. I'm here in the XFL, the big boy league.
At this point, I just want Brett Favre not to send any more pictures of his junk to anyone. Just stay retired.
Dude, you were just asking.
Just stay retired. Yeah, I was. You caught me before the show. But that's okay. Just going on, we'll go forward. You've got a couple more trade block rumors that you want to talk about.
No, I want to kind of like a speed round in a sense, and of course we'll knock everyone else's comments out. Go just real quickly. Cody says the Giants will probably go Isaiah Simmons going for the defensive player.
I would like Isaiah Simmons going there because you're talking about one of the most athletic coverage guys ever. It's crazy that I don't even have that comment, but I will say this. I think that, oh yeah, I do. There it is. I just can't read.
Yeah.
Isaiah Simmons might be the best defensive player in this draft. I think we're underrating how good of a coverage linebacker he is. They played him at nickel, a linebacker covering nickel receivers, and I know what everyone's going to say. It was the ACC. They weren't that good this year. Still, I don't care. He covers like a safety. He hits like a linebacker. Isaiah Simmons is a monster. It would be a great upgrade for a defensive line that seems like it's got it all figured out. I know Leonard Williams is moving out, but Dexter Lawrence played well. B.J. Hill played well. They have a good nose tackle as well. The Giants need some linebacker help because Alec Ogletree and David Mayo, I think, haven't been quite up to snuff yet. Bringing in Simmons could be that guy. That could be the thing that re-sparks this defense. They still need some corners. We'll talk about that later. They still need a lot of things. But still, that team, to me, Isaiah Simmons would be fantastic. Jeffrey Okudah would be fantastic. I like the defensive pick, but it could be Jerry Jeudy. It could be CeeDee Lamb. And we're going to have the best receivers, and we're going to give Daniel Jones as many weapons as we possibly can.
Or it could be Brown. I mean, they might just double up on defensive line. I mean,
absolutely.
They could.
They could say we're just going to be monsters in the defensive front because Edelman likes that too.
Yes,
I totally agree.
Cameron, this is Cayman had a question just for you, Jake. He said Davidson or Lewis?
I think he's talking Terrell Lewis.
At number 29 during draft pick.
I think it's Yuta Gross-Matos. I would prefer Lewis. I think they need to go. If he's there, I would prefer Lewis, I think, over Davidson. But I think it's going to be Yuta Gross-Matos if you believe all of the pre-draft hype, which might all be misdirection from John Robinson. But they've gone to see the Penn State edge rusher 3 or 4 times already. And at this point, it's like the worst kept secret that the Titans need an edge rusher with that pick at 29. He might be the guy that's still hanging around because I think Kayvon Chason will be gone by that point out of LSU. I think it's very likely. Maybe Epineza falls to him, and you're not getting the 12 sack a year guy, but you're getting another great run defender for the Titans.
He won't fall that far.
Well, we were talking about him at 15 already in our mocks, and now he has a bad combine. What if he has a bad pro day?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, people could be looking at guys like Kayvon Chason that are lighting up the combine and Yuta Gross-Matos and saying,
don't bring me up in the past players, man. You know I will. I'll start bringing up like terrible combines and how great of a career they had in the NFL.
Absolutely agree.
It's something else for sure. Let's go on. So what this is, I got a trade block rumors. I got some hot names out there that they're talking about could be traded. Some are more likely than the other. But I wanted to kind of be a speed round for you, and of course it never is. I'm going to ask you the player.
No, it never is.
There's
no speed with me.
What is the possibility of being traded, and what is the value of this player at this point in time in their career? You
okay.
ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, man. Left tackle, Trenton Williams, age 31.
I'm going to say moderate chance to be traded and moderate value, if that was the second half of the question that I already forgot. I think there are going to be a lot of teams that are interested, even a tackle at 31, when they look at what Jason Peters done. When they look at Andrew Whitworth out for the Rams, they're going to say, I'll take a chance on him. Even if he gives me 2 years and he's the stopgap, I got to protect my quarterback. Regardless of where you're at, it starts at left tackle. I think there'd be a lot of teams interested. I think the Redskins really want to keep him around. And supposedly they're working on a new deal. Trent Williams is still on the fence after holding out all of last year. I think this is kind of like in the middle on both those things. Could absolutely happen. I think he stays a Redskin.
Attitude an issue.
No. I mean, he's been the good soldier for long enough. I think a lot of GMs will recognize that and say, hey, he got to the point where enough was enough and didn't want to play for that franchise tag.
Yeah.
I think a lot of GMs will say it'll be different. Here's your fresh start.
Wide receiver Alshon Jeffrey, the age 30. Maybe over the hump. Maybe.
Alshon Jeffrey traded from the Eagles. I just don't know that the market's going to be there. We don't see guys trading, at least not right away. I think there's going to be a lot of teams that are more interested in addressing it at other spots. It could be something that after free agency, the first round of free agency, and after the draft, and I didn't get my guy, he could be on the move. I'll say lower moderate. If there's like 2, if I'm going out of a list of 5, and 5 is very likely and 1 is very unlikely, I'll say a 2, at least until after the draft.
All right.
Still value there. I think he's still a great player.
Absolutely. I agree. I don't think he's going anywhere, but this is what this is. Wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr., age 27, is rumored to be on the trade block.
Say that again.
Odell Beckham Jr.
Odell Beckham. I'm going to say moderate because I think after all the antics and everything else, they're going to look at the Giants, who did not have a ton of success even with Odell. And you look at the Browns, I think there's going to be a little bit more kind of reservations about trading for Odell Beckham than even there was when Cleveland did it from the Giants. I think there's going to be some teams that are like, look, great talent, but I just don't want him messing up my locker room.
So the whole
obviously great trade value because of what he can bring you.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole year antics with him supposedly talking to other teams, saying, "Hey, come get me next year. I'm ready to play for you."
Yeah.
Do you believe any of that hype? Or do you believe any teams were listening?
Yeah, I think everyone's looking at it, but telling a quarterback, "Hey, come get me, man, come get me," is not the same thing as telling a GM. You know, right. The GM's probably looking at it like, yeah, Cleveland's going to want a bunch of picks, and then you've got the attitude, and Cleveland didn't have a lot of success with you, and the Giants didn't have a lot of success with you, and you lost a fight to a kicking net. It's not just this year. Like, if it was just this year, like it didn't work out with the Browns, I think everyone would be all over this. Like, the Browns' phone would be ringing off the hook. But we've had 3 or 4 or 5 years of this. Yeah. And with a receiver draft that's as deep as this, why am I going to go sell the farm to trade for Odell Beckham when I can go draft somebody who might be the next Odell Beckham with, like, Jerry Jeudy if I'm up towards the top? Or I can get a CeeDee Lamb. Right. I get a Justin Jefferson or a Denzel Mims or a Jalen Reagor.
It's because they're not proven and Odell Beckham is
But I can take 2 swings. Like, I can swing the bat twice. Yeah, and they may not be Odell Beckham, but if I get, again, 80% of it with 0% of the attitude, isn't that better?
It is better. Let me get to some of these comments. Cody says, Jeffrey back to the Bears. And Cameron says, Jeffrey to New England if they re-sign Tom Brady.
I just wonder what the compensation would be. I don't hate that fit. I think that's fantastic. But my question is, what is the compensation that New England's going to be able to afford to make that trade?
Yeah.
I think they I think Belichick is ready to move on from Tom Brady. And he's saying, to do that, I have to spend some picks on some guys.
Yeah.
I don't know that he's going to be as interested controlling the personnel in New England of trading for a 30-year-old wide receiver to win like one or two more championships. I think Belichick is in that the dynasty must continue without you kind of phase.
Yeah, absolutely. One more pass catcher, tight end, Hayden Hurst, 26th, pretty much the odd man out in Baltimore. Everyone was talking about it. We talked about it. Baltimore has a bunch of great tight ends. This kind of sees the odd man out. Do you see value in this trade, and is it possible he will be traded?
I see a lot of value here anytime you're trading for something like that, because even though they spent a first-round pick on Hayden Hurst, I think you could probably trade a third or a fourth-round pick to go bring the tight end right now. If you can do that, great move by you by doing it. You're getting a young player who's going to be around for a while, even though he's a little bit older. He was a little bit older as a draft pick, but he's still a young player in the grand scheme of things. You're going to get a full contract's worth out of Hayden Hurst and a rookie contract, which is the most important. You can go offer him that fifth-year deal for tight ends, and all of a sudden we're talking about very, very low money for a guy that's going to be 30 or 31 coming off that contract. As to whether the Ravens should do it, I don't think they should consider it. I mean, if you look at a lot of the success, it's because they had all those athletic tight ends, and even though you've used other guys, next year something could happen to Mark Andrews, something could happen to Boyle. You could need to use Hayden Hurst, and the way your offense has worked is we have these huge receivers that can bully you on the ground, and Lamar Jackson is going to have guys that can go up and get it, and that's what Hayden Hurst is. They shouldn't consider it, but if they are, I'd say it's a moderate chance to trade him.
His name was on the trading blocks before the deadline last year, before it ended. They were talking about Seattle going after him. Cody says, I'd love to see OBJ in San Francisco or Detroit. And Cameron says, OBJ is an average NFL wide receiver with a flair for making unbelievable catches.
I disagree with that completely. I think the Giants misused him with Eli Manning, and I think this year it's just Cleveland's offense went off the rails when the locker room was lost, and because their offensive line was as devastated as it was, losing guys like Kevin Zeitler and Greg Robinson playing as bad as he did. I disagree with that. I think he's a very talented guy, but I think he's a very toxic guy. He's a guy that, but then again, maybe you pair him with Richard Sherman, who's very outspoken and very toxic's not the right word for Sherman, but he's a very outspoken guy that hopefully could teach someone like Odell Beckham, like, hey man, sometimes you need to rein it in and sometimes you need to let it loose. Here's how I've done it with my career. I think the two of them, even though everyone thinks that would be a bad setup, having those two guys in the same room, might actually have the same kind of energy, and they could coalesce there. I like San Fran as an option. And I like Odell Beckham. I do. I think, yes, we remember the circus freak catches, but do you remember how many Giants games there were where Eli didn't throw to him in like the second half? He'd like go a half without throwing to Odell Beckham.
And then he's still like ranked like the leading reception for first 4 years in the league. He led it or was close to leading in all-time catches. Cameron, I get what you're saying. It's definitely because after two down years, you're kind of like, well, maybe he's back to reality, and he was kind of on a hype train.
Right.
I still think he's there. When you look at what was going on with the Giants and you see what was going on with Baker Mayfield, it was definitely a down year for all those quarterbacks. So a couple more here. Cody says Carolina would be a great fit for Hurst if Cam came back. And Cameron's agreeing.
And even if he doesn't, yes.
Hurst to the Panthers makes sense.
Yes, I agree. Even without Cam, I think that's a great move. I think you're getting a tight end that it eventually could develop. He's got the physical tools you look for. Maybe you feature him a little bit. Again, tight end's a growth position. After it's 2 years now for Hurst. He was the same year as Lamar Jackson. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think that at this point when you talk about Hayden Hurst, I think every team in the NFL could use him. And I think you just have to find the right number. You just got to find the pick.
I wouldn't even hate if Kansas City went out and traded.
Yeah, exactly. If you give up a late third or an early fourth round pick to bring in a guy like this, I think that's fantastic. I'd do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless you're like the Titans, where you've got like 8 of those guys that you're like, maybe he develops into a great tight end.
All right, another playmaker coming on the board for the block rumors. Trade block rumors is running back Le'Veon Bell at the age of 28.
I believe there's a high chance that the Jets are interested in trading him. I don't believe in a high chance of him actually being traded because of the money. Right? If you look at the year he had, everyone's going to look at that $17 million a year contract, and they're going to be like, nope, not for me. I'll just go get Melvin Gordon if I'm going to pay that. Or
this was the guy I was excited about having a conversation with you about.
But those rumors were there when they signed him, and they signed Adam Gase after that. And Adam Gase supposedly was like, dude, why did you spend $17 million a year on a running back? I guess he comes from my idea or my school of thought that you don't need to pay a running back that kind of money. I think there are a couple of those special guys, but when your team is not there, it doesn't help enough. I think the Jets would be very interested to get out from under that contract.
I think that don't believe in the hype of him being not a great running back.
I think he's a great running back.
When you run into a team like the Jets who struggle everywhere offensively and defensively, you're going to struggle too. And to be honest, if you're going to ask me what shined out of that whole entire team, I'd tell you it'd be Le'Veon Bell. And it was the fact that he was consistently used and he never got hurt. So it proved, because one of the biggest things about him was, man, you can't stay healthy.
Right.
Guess what he did? He stayed healthy.
Sure.
He stayed healthy being used a lot in a terrible team.
A terrible offensive line, yes.
And every defense knew Le'Veon's getting the ball, you stop Bell. That makes sense. It's what it is. So if anything, even though his numbers weren't there, I actually believe his stock rised a little bit because it kind of put all those naysayers were like, he shut up, he played, and he stayed healthy.
But I actually see the opposite. I think, again, when he was in Pittsburgh, he's the man who can't be stopped. Everyone was like, this guy's so amazing that I can just sign him. And I think that's what the Jets thought they were getting.
There's a realistic side to that, and it's the fact that the Steelers' offense is amazing, and the Jets' offense is one of the worst in the NFL.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree totally, but I think as a GM, you're like, well, maybe my team's middle of the road, and maybe $17 million, I get middle of the road kind of performances, because, I mean, I'm not sure where he finished in yards per carry, but it was somewhere around 3.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was somewhere around like 2.9 to 3. So hard slogging. The Jets would love to do it. I don't think anyone's going to be able to just say, I'm going to take on that contract. It would have to be, you're renegotiating this before the trade happens, and he wants out of New York and everything else.
Cameron says the Titans trade Delaney Walker now that Janu has showed that he could be a legit option at tight end.
Again, there just won't be a suitor. The Titans are going to cut him. The money he's making, he's due like $8 million. He's 37, coming off an ankle injury that basically sidelined him for 2 years now. I hate to say it, but I think Delaney will likely be released, and I just don't see. I don't see a team that says, "Give me that guy," when they know the Titans are going to have to cut him. But I think Jonnu Smith will be the Titans' starting tight end, if that's what you're asking.
Cameron has another question for you, Jake. He's just ignoring me. Like, I don't have feelings.
Well, I mean, you're allowed to answer the Delaney one, too.
No, I know.
How do you feel about Delaney Walker?
I think you nailed it. I think that there's no option. To be honest, I would, if it was me and I was Delaney Walker, I would take a pay cut and try to stay on the Titans. If it was me. He goes, what would you pay for Derrick Henry?
What would I pay for Derrick Henry?
He says 3 to 4 years, $20 million per year.
No, too much. No running back's worth 20. Period. Not Derrick Henry, not Le'Veon Bell. Name a running back he ain't worth $20 million a year. I think it has to be somewhere under Le'Veon Bell money. And I know he said Zeke money is the benchmark, which is the highest paid running back at this point, but I don't think you can break the bank for Derrick Henry, even though he's been amazing. I think before you do that, you transition tag or franchise tag him and just say, we'll run 2 more years out of him. We'll give him another 300 or 400 touches like we did this year, and then at the end we'll cut bait and say thanks for all you've done, but no thanks anymore. I think my number's closer to 14 or 15. And the only reason I say that is because I think Derrick Henry is special. I think for his size and his speed, you don't get that. It takes him a while to get there. He's not like he doesn't have that quick burst, but when you have a guy that can hit the home run play, you just don't get that of a guy this size. My number would probably be 14.5 or 15 mil.
Yeah, when he hits that 5 to 7 yard mark in his run, he's one of the most hardest running backs, if not the hardest running back to stop in the
exactly. Especially when he gets out there and there's only a free safety between him and the end zone. So that's pretty tough.
If it's a linebacker or a free safety. If he is on,
well, the linebackers keep getting smaller. He's bigger than a lot of these guys now.
If he was on yard 5 to 7, that's the mark where it's like if you have not put a body
if you haven't
on
touched
him, he is.
Yes,
the hardest running back to bring down.
And even this year, he was towards the top on yards after touch. He only had like 400 yards before first touch, which is amazing. That first touch could be anything. It can be a finger on you where a guy has no chance to actually make the tackle, but he's still slowing you down. I think the Titans just need to consider with Derrick Henry, like, we can't overpay for him. I would rather give him a 5-year contract at 13 to 14 and just not guarantee the end of it, where you just keep him around. If he's good, that's what he gets. So you gets that $60 or $65 million number attached to it. But you just can't fall into the trap of we're going to overpay for any running back, period. Because as good as Derrick Henry is, they could spend a 3rd-round pick and go get 80% of that.
Well, Cameron also he really thinks that he's going to get franchised. But if we do pay him, he'll be the highest paid running back. He guarantees that 100%.
I'm not saying you're wrong. He went on Rich Eisen's show, I think it was, and said Zeke money is the floor. It might have been Dan Patrick. I don't remember who it was. But he said Zeke money is the floor.
Let's move on. Let's go into let's do corners. I'll leave the quarterbacks for the last. Let's go into corners. Let's go into Quentin Dunbar, age 27, What is the likeliness of him being traded, and what is the value of Quentin Dunbar?
Well, he stepped up. I think the value is high. I think he's young. He's a corner that, again, you look at a lot of the corner market out there this year, a lot of these guys are going to be 31, 30, 29 at the youngest with guys like Logan Ryan. You're getting a 27-year-old that played a heck of a year after Josh Norman went down and he kind of became the focal point of the defense. Teams didn't want to throw his way.
Yeah.
He had a great year. Quentin Dunbar hasn't been that guy for years, but, I mean, this is the kind of year that you want to see for a guy like that. I think I want to hope that the Redskins aren't actually considering it. I think you need to keep him around. But if they are considering him,
let go, it would not make sense trading this guy off.
Exactly. But if they do, I think there's going to be a lot of teams. This is the 5. Like, everybody's interested in trading for him if he's out there.
Absolutely. I think so.
As for the number, I could even see a low first-round pick for this guy, as crazy as it is. He had that good of a year where I think a team could get suckered into giving up, like, pick 26, pick 27.
Is that the reason why?
Not suckered into, but
is that
see
the
value
reason
there.
why he's possibly on the trade block?
If you're
value of him.
Washington, and I'm Ron Rivera, and the only reason we're considering this is if I'm Ron Rivera, I look at the rest of the roster and I say, we're not there. It's going to be a 2-year rebuild. This is why I would do it. 2 or 3-year rebuild. And I'm like, look, Dan, I know you want to win, but we've got the Cowboys who are good. We've got the Eagles who are likely to be better next year. The Giants that are starting to rebuild as well. It's going to take me 2 or 3 years before we're a playoff team. That would be the only time that I'm actually considering trading him.
All right, next corner, Darius Slay, 29.
This is stupid. This is stupid to me. He's been one of the best corners in the league, and the rumors keep persisting. It's the same mentality. If they truly believe in Detroit, like we're multiple years away from being a playoff team, they should absolutely consider trading a 29-year-old corner. But the difference is they're not. 12 of their games, they finished within 1 score. Those were wins and losses, but they finished within 1 score in 12 of their games. This is a good team that, with Matt Stafford playing, needs all the weapons they can get. They should draft Okuda. They should hang on. They should renew Darius Slay, who's going into the last year of his contract. They should give him a 3 or a 4-year deal and make him close to the highest paid corner in football for what he's done for you in the past and what you expect he can do for you in the future.
Cody says they cut Josh Norman. They are keeping Dunbar. And Cameron says the Dolphins have 26. The pick.
Well, yeah, they do. They do, absolutely. If you're the Dolphins and you can get someone like Quentin Dunbar who's 27 and you give up pick 26,
match him up to Howard.
I think you consider it. I think you absolutely consider
it.
Have
the 2 best corners or tandem in the NFL.
Yeah, you could beat Jacksonville, though. Like, we're going to go for that. And I don't know that what we saw from Dunbar wasn't like a 1-year kind of burst where, but he's not in a contract here. He's under contract. Yeah. So it could have just been a 1-year kind of aberration where he was the better guy, and kind of like Nnamdi Asomugha when he was with the Raiders, where everyone thought he was just the best corner in football. And it just turns out the guy he was playing across from wasn't as good. There was scheme change. It wasn't just that.
He was, but then he turned out not to be, because he was the best corner.
He was. But a lot of it was the guy next to him is trash. And I'm going to just throw over there because he's open all the time.
But when they did throw him the ball, he stopped it. Problem was, and they're like, "You're."
But they just never threw him the ball because they're like, "That guy's okay. That guy is not. I'm going to go that way." It could have been some of that. I don't know that that's necessarily the case because the rest of the corners for Washington were not good. But I would take the gamble. I would probably trade pick 26, especially if I have 2 other first-round picks, and try to bring in a guy that's 27 like Dunbar, who could be there when this franchise is actually ready to win.
Yeah, I'm with Cody. You don't cut Josh Norman and then get rid of arguably your best corner after that.
Right.
But
I am too.
Hey, you know what? This is Ron Rivera's team. He's done it kind of before in the sense of Josh Norman being cut or traded away in the Panthers and him going to fresh, young rookies at corner. Getting rid of Dunbar at a high price trade, bringing another first round or a top high second round, that kind of reminds me of Ron Rivera move. That seems to make sense. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I don't think they will.
I think I'm going to read these real quick.
Oh, go ahead.
Cameron says he would trade pick 29 for the Titans to bring in Darius Slay, and Cody said Slay to the Jets, please. The problem is, I think these rumors, they're shopping him like, hey, if we are going to just tear somebody's eyes out and we're going to gouge him and we're going to get 2 first-round picks or a first and a third-round pick for Darius Slay, a 29-year-old corner, we'll trade him. I think that's exactly what this is. I don't think this happens for a second or a third-round pick. I think the Detroit Lions, from everything I've heard, they're insisting on his value, and they're saying, you're going to pay us because he is one of the best corners in the league. It's just not worth it, especially if you're the Jets, but even if you're the Titans, it's just not worth it. The Jets should look at it and say, he's 29. By the time we're ready to win a Super Bowl, he won't be there. And the Titans should look at it like, well, we've got 2 other corners, even with Malcolm Butler, who will be returning and had a better 2019 than 18. And we have a Dory Jackson who's stepping up and looking like he's developing into one of the better corners in the league. It's just not worth your pick. You've got other needs. Even though I love Darius Slay, I think he's been my like unsung hero for years. That I talk about him all the time. But I just don't think you can pay that much for any 29-year-old corner because how many of them hit 30 or 31, and that's just it. Yeah. They lose that step, and it's game over.
All right, to the quarterbacks, man. I got 3 of them. Do you want me to give them to you all at the same time? Or
no, go one at a time. I'll go fast. I'll go fast.
Derek Carr, age 28. We've already talked a little bit about it.
Everyone should be interested. The Raiders shouldn't be interested in making it happen, but if they are going to move on, you should insist on value. Could happen. I'd say lower than moderate, probably a 2. The money is kind of still a holdup. I think next year is the year where it becomes much more feasible.
Andy Dalton, age 32.
This'll happen. I think they're going to trade him. I think when they draft Joe Burrow, it's just going to happen. The question is how much. I think they're going to get like a 4th or a 5th round pick out of him.
I think this is the quarterback. If it's not Derek Carr, then everyone
But if I'm Andy Dalton, I'm going to hold him hostage. I'm going to say you owe me $15 million. You won't. I'm not going to work with trade with you. Cut me because even though I probably won't make 15 on the open market, I don't want to kneecap the team that I'm likely to go to start at.
Yeah, and then you get your option of who you want to go to as well.
Exactly.
I agree.
Because this could be it. If you go somewhere like Denver and you mess up, Andy Dalton could be done.
Outside of Derek Carr, I think he'll succeed in Denver. And you know how I am about Denver. I think Andy Dalton is a quarterback that can fit in any system you ask him to do. Minus Lamar Jackson.
I think if he's going... Kyler Murray.
Murray offense. He can do anything beyond that.
I just think when you talk about Andy Dalton, he's the guy that when everything's right can win you some games, but he's the guy when things are wrong, it could look pretty ugly. I mean, even this year.
I'll give you that.
But he was good. He was good in spurts for the Bengals. He won him a couple games. Almost messed up that first overall pick for him. He tried, and I'll give him credit for that.
All right, last one. Nick Foles, age 31.
Very unlikely because of the money. I think the cut happens first. I think Jacksonville should be interested in...
Was it like $50 million?
Yeah. I think Jacksonville should consider keeping him and just say, we're going to actually block somebody and see what he can do. I think this idea of we need to move on from him is purely because you didn't do a good job of having the pocket passer.
And the play of Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the catalyst. But, again, they're going to look at Nick Foles and they're going to say he wasn't special, even though we didn't have any receivers and we didn't have any offensive linemen. Ceiling-wise, I'd say his ceiling is higher than Gardner Minshew just because of what I've seen him do with the Eagles.
Yeah, I hear you on that.
But floor-wise, if your offense stays bad, Gardner Minshew will 100% be the better quarterback.
I think Gardner Minshew's yet to be unseated. It's an untapped potential with him because no one expected him to play the way he did, and the fact he came out there and played like that, I think it's untapped. So when we talk about a ceiling, I have to give it to you right away that Nick Foles probably has it because we've seen it.
We've seen him be a Super Bowl MVP, right? Isn't that the ceiling?
That's the ceiling you want.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. Cameron says Andy Dalton to the Colts. And he says about Nick Foles, no one wants that contract.
Precisely. That's the thing. Money. If I was Nick Foles, I'd be talking with Indy right now because that offensive line would be like, look, you give me 7 this year, give me 12 the year after because not John Robinson because Chris Ballard doesn't like spending any money, and then you give me 20 for each year after that, and send me somewhere with an offensive line and let me shine. Go get me some weapons. Trade a 3rd or a 4th round pick to bring me in. I'll work that new contract with you. If I'm Nick Foles, my agent is on the phone right now making that happen.
Well, Cody says keep Foles. Injuries happen. Some will end up needing him after preseason. Most likely a higher value then.
Yes, but again, the money. That when you get into that preseason kind of mode, not everybody has the $22 million a year you're going to have to pay to get Nick Foles in, or $24 wherever he's at these days. I don't know what his year 2 looks like, but it's somewhere in the low 20s.
It's $50 million that's left.
Total, but I'm talking about like per year in your cap space. Not a lot of teams are going to have that $20 million.
If you split in half, it's 25. I'm not saying it's that case.
You could if you IR your quarterback. So like if Aaron Rodgers got hurt and you IR'd him, that would probably free up enough cap space to trade for Nick Foles. So that could happen.
I'll give you this preseason. Okay, I'll give you that, Cody. But mid-season, you go down and you're on the cusp of the playoffs. Does Nick Foles coming in make you a playoff team?
Remember what he did for the Eagles? Yes.
And
if I'm like the Packers,
question to you is, I think his value does go up, but I think preseason is like a team that's like, we need a quarterback. I'm willing to trade the bank because I can't go into this season with whatever my second and third option are. I need a number 1 option.
Yeah.
That's what I'm seeing. A team will probably be like, yeah, we're going to trade an arm and a leg for it during the preseason. Later in the season, I think it is a value, but it depends on what there is. Because some of those teams will be like, listen, we're going to go on with our second option. He's been here for 6 weeks. He knows our system. I don't have to train this guy, or hey, they have to learn a playbook. We're trying to win now. I think there's two sides of the table here, but I think the most value is preseason. But when you bring up a team that's right there on the cusp of playoffs, that value gets pretty high for a quarterback like Nick Foles.
I actually think it's after the draft. Like, all these quarterbacks are going to sign. Phillip Rivers will be gone in free agency. Tom Brady will be back with the Patriots, all this other stuff. Tannehill will be back with the Titans. And then there'll be that team that didn't hit it. Like, maybe it's Indianapolis. Maybe it's Tampa Bay that they're like, maybe we want to move on from Jameis. But I think after the draft is the best time to trade him because there won't be anyone out in free agency. A team will have missed on their guy, or maybe they draft like Jalen Hurts late and they're like, oh, I took him because I didn't get my guy, or whatever. I think that's where the real value comes in because then I get a whole offseason to work with him, and you don't have those concerns like you were talking about where I don't have to worry about a guy who's learning a playbook. Just my final thought here on Nick Foles, the only thing about the Indy thing that doesn't make sense is they're in division. And Jacksonville might just have this, it's not happening because we're not making the Colts better because we have to play them twice a year. Yeah. And theoretically, we're competing with them for the division, even though we're not. I think, at least with that trade, though, if I'm Nick Foles, that would be the first place. Second would be the Cowboys if they're still struggling with Dak Prescott. I'd be going to Jerry Jones like, I'm an NFL Super Bowl MVP, and you can get me for a 4th-round pick and a deal on money, and you can keep Amari Cooper, and you'll have some money to spend on some of these guys. You can keep Byron Jones. That's exactly what I'd be doing if I was Nick Foles. I would be calling my agent every day like, okay, progress report. Have you talked to Jerry Jones today? Have you talked to Chris Ballard today? Have you talked to my GM today? Have you talked to, take your pick.
Yeah.
There's a couple teams that if I'm Nick Foles, I want to go to the good offensive line teams that have some weapons and see if I can beat the guy that won the Eagles the Super Bowl in 2017.
All right, Cameron. I guess you got me, man. I'll give my reason why before I let you answer this. He goes, you got one guy he thinks that I missed on a possible trade rumor, and that's Stephon Diggs. And before you answer, the reason I did not put him on there, even though I thought about writing his name, is really all the rumors are coming from him.
Yes.
All the rumors are coming from the fact that Diggs wants to be traded. Vikings at this point literally have no want to get rid of one of the best receivers in the league.
The only thing that makes sense to me is the money.
Yeah.
Because they're broke. They have the least cap space. They're negative. They're in the red. They have to come up with some guys to get rid of. The only thing that would make sense to me for Stephon Diggs is that, he's not coming back. But
he is.
Yeah.
He's just not happy.
He'll be there, too. You'll get rid of everyone else to keep the offense together, I think.
He really is just like every other receiver that's good. It's like, I want the ball, and I want it all the time.
He's like Odell Beckham, but not quite as good to me. And I like Stephon Diggs, but there's a point in time where it's like, all right, man, you weren't winning when you weren't doing your job. You can't complain about how the team's going when you're not doing your job. Yeah. If you were putting up 8 receptions for 228 yards and the team's losing, okay, you can complain.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the only one that's talking about wanting to be traded is just Stephon Diggs. I
don't think the Vikings are any interested in that at all.
They're like, we have arguably the 2 best receiver or tandem really in the league. It's like, why would we get rid of one?
But to be fair, that has been floating around. Even last year, the trading and stuff has been floating around.
I missed it, but I did not. I thought about it, but I just didn't.
But I think it will be very low because again, like you said, Vikings not very interested at all. When you have a talent like that, you don't give it up.
Usually not.
Unless you're the Giants and it's Odell Beckham, and you're like, get this guy out of the locker room. Just go, just go. All right. We didn't talk draft, rise, and fall, guys, but that sounds like a conversation for another day.
Yeah. I mean, we got a couple more things on my list. We kind of touched a little bit about Jason Peters. We didn't talk about A.J. Green being franchised.
Okay, do you want to rapid fire him? Let's do it. I got nowhere to be. It's Friday. I'm a loser. I'm talking sports. That's it.
That makes you a loser? Dude, you're not a loser.
No, those are mutually exclusive. I'm a loser, but I'm also talking sports.
Did your mom call you a loser before you got here?
Yes. All right.
I'll give her a phone call after this show.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Let's rapid fire. Let's go.
Can you call my mom?
This isn't rapid fire, Drew.
Can you call my mom too, though? Because she called me a loser before we got on.
I'll try. Okay. I'll try. But I can't talk to Robin. I can't talk anything into this woman. If you're a loser, I hate to tell you this. If she tells you you're a loser, Drew, I hate to tell you this. She might be a loser. Okay. Rapid fire. Jason Peters. Will it happen? Or he's testing free agency. What's going to happen?
Testing free agency. 38 years old.
Someone's going to pay him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Someone's going to be like, hey, if you're the 15th best guy, I've got the 28th best guy right now. Yeah. Arizona should think about it. Give me 1 year.
Well, they got DJ Humphries. I mean, maybe not.
No, give me 1 year.
What about Mike? Be like,
Well, you can have DJ Humphries, and then he can come in when Jason Peters only plays like 8 games this year.
Yeah.
Because that happens like every year now. And this was the guy that it never happened to be fair. Peters was a rock until he hit about 34.
What about the Dolphins?
Think about it. Yeah, absolutely. Even if it's 1 year.
That, yeah.
I think even them, it's probably a little farther off because if you get the quarterback, if they draft Tua, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I was thinking.
If it happens. But there's rumors that they might just hold out for Trevor Lawrence and say, we're going to build the rest of the team with these draft
but
picks.
They're playing Ryan Fitzpatrick. You can't wait.
But I wanted to talk about this, but if the Redskins draft Tua and they don't like Justin Herbert, and they don't like Julian Love, and they don't like Jake Fromm, you could wait on the quarterback and just say, we're going to spend these draft picks to make us a better team.
I just don't believe that the Redskins are drafting Tua.
I think they could. It's Dan Snyder. I don't know what to believe.
Should is a different scenario.
They could do it. I think they might look at the Josh Rosen thing and say, "Hey, Dwayne Haskins played better at the end of the year than Josh Rosen did ever in Arizona. We could trade him. Someone will give us a high second round pick for him." I don't know what that team is, but they could.
All right, AJ Green gonna get franchise tag. The rumor is this has been requested by Burrow to keep him there.
If Joe Burrow asked me to do it, I'd do it.
Yeah, I would too.
Other than that, I would probably move on from AJ Green. I talked about that in the episode I did on the Bengals where I was just doing it. So you didn't watch it, so you don't know what I said.
I actually did watch it. Thank you very much.
But let me say this about AJ Green: I would probably let him go, but if my number 1 overall drafted quarterback says jump, I'll say how high. At this point, yes, AJ Green. If it's asked by Burrow, bring him back, get him some weapons. Just live with it. It's money. You're probably not going to be able to entice too many free agents to Cincinnati. I would definitely just move on. Cody says Peters going to the Steelers. Again, could happen. Their offensive line's been good. They need a refresher, but I don't know that bringing a 38-year-old in is the refresher you need. Especially a team with money problems, because I don't think he's going to be working for cheap.
Yeah, it makes sense because you're like, we need to keep Ben Roethlisberger upright for another year or two. Bringing in someone like Peters, even at 38, he is a wall.
When he's there.
He is a wall.
When he's there. But the problem is that's less and less frequently these days.
Yes.
Money-wise, I think is the biggest issue with the Steelers.
First ballot Hall of Famer?
No, because he's an offensive lineman. 3rd or 4th ballot Hall of Famer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I just won a Super Bowl.
I like him. I think he's great. I think he could be. I think he deserves it. But the way football works, and you can only send so many guys, the backlog they have, I just don't think it happens.
All right, Cameron says, last comment, and we'll end it up. Cameron says, he may be wrong, but he thinks Tua is a bust. Herbert and Burrow have potential, but both likely to fall victim of being drafted to awful teams.
Let me say this about Tua. If he never got hurt, or if he only had the injury from last year, if he never got hurt this year and he continued on the trajectory he was, there would be some doubt that Joe Burrow is the right guy at number 1. People would be talking about Tua like he could be that guy. I don't think he has the down. He's not Patrick Mahomes that could just like destroy everybody down the field. He's the guy that in the mid-range is home. Dak Prescott's not the right comparison, but he's kind of like Dak Prescott that when he finds a guy open in the middle of the field, he can just devastate teams like that, and then you get the run after the catch. I think Tua. Again, the thing is the injury. When you talk about him being a bust, he could just go out there and get hurt 3 or 4 times in a row, and I can totally see that happening. That is the biggest risk. If he's on the field, I have no doubt about the skill. I have a doubt about the injury history. That's the only thing that worries me about Tua's game at all. And I know he did it at Alabama. I know he had weapons. I don't care. Every good quarterback has weapons. That's not true, but you get what I'm saying.
I like all 3 of them. And I still like Jake Fromm. I know I'm kind of like, I'm bringing up old news. I still think Jake Fromm is an NFL-ready quarterback.
Is this like a renaissance year for young quarterbacks? So like maybe we have 3 or 4 of these guys become like, maybe not the best, but like top 12, top 14 guys 4 or 5 years from now that we're talking like this draft was amazing for quarterbacks. Do you think that could happen?
Yeah, I think it's like a Nick Foles, Andy Dalton kind of scenario where these guys at 30, 31, 32 might not be at the same team that drafted them, but they make a big splash in free agency.
Crazily enough, I actually am the opposite kind of standing of this. I think Fromm could be average. He could be like an Andy Dalton. I think Justin Herbert could be like a Jameis Winston that just there's too many mistakes at too many different times to him be effective. Tua could be hurt all the time, Chad Pennington style, and Joe Burrow could get wrecked by the Bengals. And then we're talking about like maybe Julian Love goes in the 2nd or the 3rd round to somebody who can actually make use of him.
I think the quarterbacks coming out of college, even with not NFL offenses being played, more ready for the NFL than it ever was before.
Cameron says that Russell Wilson is his comparison, but the injuries come up. Yes, I agree. I don't hate it. He's athletic enough, but I don't know that I compare him to Russell Wilson because he wins at like every facet of the game.
Russell Wilson's one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the NFL. I'd like to see Tua be like that. We'll
see what happens when the window's closed.
I know he was accurate in college.
Yeah, we'll see what happens when the window's closed a little bit.
It changes a whole lot going in the NFL.
All right. Whew. Okay, that was a good show. It was a long one. I'm sorry we missed you guys for as long as we did, but did we get it all out?
A lot of things happened.
They did. I know. Is there anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
Well, I think I'm good.
Let's just restart. Let's go from the beginning. Another hour and a half. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Welcome into Sports Around the Bar. I'm Jakey Bartender. No, I'm kidding. I don't think I'd survive.
You might have already missed it.
But what are you most excited about, Jake?
Tuesday. Talking and doing this again. It was fun. It was good to be back. Thank you guys so much for sticking around with us. It was a great show. Had a lot of fun. We will be back. Hopefully my screen won't look like this, but it's been forever, and we haven't dropped any films.
Why do you need to look at yourself?
That's how I do it. If I can't stare into my eyes, I'm just not good at sports stuff. But we'll be back on Tuesday, so we hope you can join us for that. As always,
Oh, man.
Drew's got some special thanks.
Yes, first I'd like to thank Cody and Cameron. You guys are awesome, literally from the beginning of the show to the end. Great banter.
You're the real MVP. You're the real MVP.
I really appreciate it. But everyone that did comment, I got love for all of you guys. And the life is busy. Trust me, we both know that. But Michael, Cody, Will, Ryan, Cameron, Luke, Brian, Martavius, James, JP, Cody, Michael, Frank, Nate, John, Scott, Damon. You guys are all awesome. Thank you.
If you're just joining us, thank you too. It's good to see you. Say something in the comments. We want to talk with you. But we're out of here this time. I know Drew is excited to get up and go get something else to drink. I am too. I've been out for like 40 minutes.
I'm parched.
So we'll see you again on Tuesday. Same time, 7:45 Eastern, 6:45 Central. As always, I'm Jake. This is Drew. Thanks for hanging with us, guys. Cheers.
See ya.
That's my new thing. You like it?